How are you applying the philosophy of open source to a lunar mission?
Well, we started off by creating a website and a web community where people could come and join and participate in brainstorming and creating ideas. And out of that, we had several student groups grow up, for lack of a better term. They grew up around the idea of building small robots. And the unifying idea was that we needed to be very small, because the cost of getting something out of Earth's gravity well and into space makes it very expensive to send anything that's big into space. So our goal was to make something that is as small as possible and no smaller, and as simple as possible and no simpler, just to complete the mission. And so we had our people working together to come up with ideas that supported that basic concept. And we had almost immediately teams in 11 states and 4 countries who were working on building those kinds of robotic systems.
So can you talk about some of the designs for these rovers?
The first design we had was a 4-wheel design. It was based on an erector set. It was a man in Switzerland put together an erector set, and it wasn't good enough. And that first design, he built his own tools to build the rover. He did all of this on his own time. But he built his own tools, he built his own motors, he built all of the wheels, he came up with wheel designs that work in lunar soil. Someone else in Austria saw that and built a 2-wheeled version of the rover because he wanted to do something that was different. And the 2-wheeled version of the rover was much like the 4-wheeled version, but it used only a single motor rather than 4 motors. 2 wheels, and he wanted to prove that that rover could balance and maintain a stable platform for a camera, even though it only had a 2-wheel surface to work from. And he was successful with that. Someone else had the idea of keeping out the lunar dust and building a ball rover. The ball rover is fully self-contained. There are no moving parts outside. The only part exposed to the lunar environment is the surface of the rover. The camera is inside behind a glass shield. And that was a very unique design, and that's actually our leading choice for our lunar rover now.
So what is the business plan of Team FREDNET, and how do you plan to continue sending missions to the moon after the first one?
Our first mission to the moon is intended to deliver a 10-kilogram payload to the surface of the moon, which is our lunar rover and the supporting electronics. That mission it's a proof of concept mission. It's a demonstration of how we do a lunar mission. After the first mission, we will do as many as 10 succeeding missions that use exactly the same hardware, exactly the same software, possibly with small refinements, but the spacecraft design will not change. So we'll be using reusable components, reusable spacecraft, reusable mission control software, mission control system, mission ops, ground stations. All of these things become not custom per mission, but standardized across all missions. By eliminating our payload, which is Google Lunar X Prize, we will be able to deliver 10 kilograms of payload to the lunar surface for a customer, be it scientific, commercial, educational, anyone who's interested, and we'll be able to do that for a cost of $30 million for 10 kilograms. Or we will also have the opportunity to deliver a payload to lunar orbit for the same price. We can put a larger payload in lunar orbit for lunar satellite support.
Why do you think now, in the 21st century, it's important to have a return mission to the moon?
It isn't that it's now that it's important, it's now that we have to do it. We are at the point technology-wise where we can do this now. We have lower cost rocket launch services now. The other issue we have is resources. At some point, there's a technology curve, and I have not written this out yet. It would be better as a graphic. But there's a technology curve where the use of resources continues to increase. And at some point, as resources become harder to achieve, the technology rate of growth will top out. At that point, we will lose the ability to go into space and to achieve these new technologies. So we need to be at a place on the curve where we still have access to the resources on Earth to continue exploration of space and development of resources in space that allow us to utilize the resources of space to continue our development both on Earth and in space, sustaining our environment here and improving our conditions in space.
Okay. And so does this open source participatory model continue through the mission to exploration?
It does. The open source model continues in perpetuity. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. that is the vehicle where people are allowed to contribute ideas, code, drawings, designs, and out of that nonprofit will grow limited liability companies where we license technology for use by commercial entities. Just like with Linux, Linux you can use for free if you're a non-commercial user, but if you're a commercial user, you pay licensing fees. In the same way, we will be licensing portions of the technology for commercial users, for government users, but we will be allowing individuals to use that software and those designs for free.
Okay.